Hello again, gamers. Welcome back to the Board Game Captain. I'm the Captain.
I'm Lynn.
And today we're going to be counting down our top 10 games with the best table presence. So, I took this when I'm doing my list here. I took this to be, it doesn't really matter how much I like the game. All these games are games I would rate positively. These are all good games. But it's 100% based on the table presence. Did you do it the same way?
Pretty similar, yeah.
So I went with games that I already liked, games that are still in our collection that just, look great on the tabletop or eye-catching or beautiful in some way, that really draw your attention. Go above and beyond for that kind of wow factor. What do you think?
Yeah.
You got anything else you want to add? Or
No.
Is that basically it?
That's it.
Did you have any issues putting this list together?
Not really.
Not pretty easy one to do. I found this one to be a pretty easy one to do because there's actually, I would say there's a lot of modern games that are really attractive. And actually, I found that I had to eliminate a lot of games really quickly. I was like, oh, I have another game that's really similar to this, or I still have some games on here that are actually rather similar to one another. But there was somewhere I was like, oh, I'm doing too many of this one type of game. I'm going to pull my lowest rated one off of that. But actually, it was really easy to figure out ones that were really pretty, didn't you think?
Oh, it has to be pretty? I thought.
Well,
it was
big
just
table presence.
Yeah, well, that doesn't mean it's pretty.
It doesn't? I kind of think it does.
Okay, say
All right.
so.
All right, do you want to go first or second on this list?
I'll go first.
All right, so without any further ado, we're going to get to our number 10s. Number 10.
My number 10 is Crusader Kings.
Oh, that's a great looking game on the table,
Because it is huge.
It is huge.
And there's, you have the huge map, and you also have your little player boards in front of everyone.
And you have the miniatures on the map.
Yes.
The little castles and the knights and the warriors and stuff, all on this big map of Europe kind of thing. This is one I thought of and didn't quite make my list. I actually cut off a lot of the just cool looking miniatures on a map because there were so many of them. And the problem was I was having trouble deciding between all of the cool looking miniatures on the map, so I just actually removed most of them rather than use them. But this was one I thought of. It was on my short list.
Okay.
Do you want to say anything about how Crusader Kings plays, though? What kind of game it is?
It's, I don't even really know what kind of game. It's like...
It's area control. It's you're making political dynasties.
Yeah,
it's a really cool game.
I almost wanted to say it's like sort of like a 4X game, but with
Kinda,
politics. Because you also have to make alliances, at least temporary alliances with other players.
And political marriages.
Yeah.
And you have to have children to lead when your leader dies to leave the throne to. It's a very cool game, very interesting. And yeah, you're right. It is a very good looking game on the tabletop. I do not disagree, even though it didn't make my list. Now, my number 10 for me is a weird one. But I love how it looks out on the tabletop, and it is one that I've heard a lot of other people say also. It's a very attention-getting game, and it is Nitwit. So the thing about Nitwit is when you're playing it, you place down these spools with numbers on them, and then you place a thread around some of the spools with a clothespin on it that you put a category in. And it's actually like a word game where you'll have, once everybody's placed all their spools and categories and all the things out, you have this big mess of yarn. Each thread is a different color to help differentiate. And everybody has to come up with something that fits each one of the spools. And the spool will be in a certain number of loops of thread. Each one it's inside, it must abide by that category. So if it's if you have a spool inside of, huge and green and fictional, one person might write down the Incredible Hulk and another person might write down the Jolly Green Giant. And those are both good as long as you don't write the same thing. And then you earn points for it. But the reason it's on my list is how cool it looks with all the spools and the threads out on the table. It's got this really kind of funky look to it. And also, it was a different kind of attention getting than a lot of the other games on my list, which is why it made my list. Even though obviously it's the last one on my list, was not quite as attention getting as the rest. But in a lot of the cases, I was doing too many games with miniatures, and I was like, okay, I got to get rid of some of these games with miniatures. And this one was very different in why it was attention getting to a lot of the others. That's why it stayed on.
Okay.
What do you think?
I mean, it's attention getting, I guess.
Well, then that's the point.
Yeah.
Number 9.
My number 9 is Dragon Castle, because you have all the little tiles built up.
Yes. Big. It's 3-dimensional. Uses the mahjong type tiles.
And you gotta match them.
And then you get to put the little like pagoda roofs on them as because you're like drafting tiles from a main board to like build your own little dragon castle, basically. Yeah. That is a really cool game. I like Dragon Castle a lot. And you're right, it does look very good on the tabletop. This is another one I thought of. I thought of way too many games, but didn't quite make my list only because I don't know. I don't even really know why this one didn't quite make my list. But you're right, it's a very good looking game. It's very attention getting for sure. Really nice pieces. Those tiles are like clacktastic because they're like the old school mahjong tiles. So they make that really satisfying noise when you click them together. My number 9 similarly has very clacktastic pieces. It is Xerts. So Xerts is a game, it's an abstract strategy game where you have a board made of these little plastic rings that you sit on the table, and you put these marbles of 3 different colors sitting in the rings. You take turns placing them unless you have to make a jump on your turn. If you have to make a jump, you must do it. Pieces you jump, you capture, and you get to put them on rings you've already removed from the board. So either you place a marble and remove a ring from the board, slowly shrinking it, or when you have to jump, you make a jump. If there are multiple jumps, you can choose which way to go, and you can make multiple jumps. And then you have to collect like either 3 of each color, or 4 of the color there's the least of, 5 of the color there's the second least of, or 6 of the color there is the most of. If you do any of those, you win the game. But the thing is, with it out on the border with the marbles sitting on the rings, we used to play this over at the coffee house, and people would always stop by and go, "What is that?" Like, they'd be like really intrigued. People who are not even gamers, they just come by and want to check it out. So I thought it was a very attention-getting game. What do you think?
I agree, yeah.
Number 8.
Okay. My number 8 is Victory and Glory Napoleon.
Oh yeah, big beautiful map.
It's a giant map.
Lots of cubes.
And
lots of cubes on the map. You put the cubes everywhere.
Giant map with lots of cubes. It's basically my reasoning.
And then there's the little cardboard chits and the little cards for the battles you throw down. There's cardboard pieces for the units. For the dudes, yeah, for when you actually fight. Yeah, you get the cardboard chits. No, you love games that are like big old maps because this is very similar to, because this is another big area control game, right? Although this one is again very much on like influencing them because most of the game is not fights. Most of the game is influencing the countries to try to get them on your side.
The cubes.
They're like your political influence.
Yeah.
They're not actually soldiers. It's your political influence over the area, and then sometimes you fight over areas to alter the balance of power during the Napoleonic Wars. It's supposed to be well, I was going to say Victory and Glory Napoleon. One side is Napoleon, the French. The other side is the British, and you're trying to get the different sides on your side to help aid you in the wars. Really cool game, really good looking game. The board is enormous. That's another reason you picked it, right? Really big board. But yeah, no, you definitely like those ones that look like big old maps, don't you? Yeah, totally. No, I agree. Very cool. My number 8 is Arcade. So specifically, I have the version of Arcade that came with the big board that was like a roll-up mat in a tube. Again, huge on the tabletop. The pieces are made out of that like neon plastic, either green or orange. I believe actually they had 4 different colors, but you had to get the other colors from expansions. I had just the 2 main colors, which I believe are green and orange. And you have pieces that look like these vehicles from Tron, essentially. Fighting it out in a board game version of a classic video game. You have tanks and you have flying units and all sorts of cool stuff, and there are different objectives to try to go for. So it's not just about killing each other. You also want to get the objectives. But this is a really fun, light strategy game with a lot of dice rolling, but on the table, it looks amazing. It's very attention-getting, big board, lots of cool neon plastic components, incredibly eye-catching. Unfortunately, I do not believe it is in print right now. I do hope they get it back in print at some point because this is a really cool game to add to anybody's collection. And that's why Arcade is my number favorite, or rather most, geez, how did we word this? Most attention, no, what did we say?
Best, most amazing...
Table presents? Yeah, I can't say it. Best table presents. I think that was it. Number 7. Well, usually we always say best. So, like, now it's throwing me off because there's no... It's like we always say it's our most favorite whatever game. Or...
Okay, so my number 7 is Wasteland Express delivery service.
Oh, yeah.
Because you got the big board.
Yes.
You got the little monster trucks, and then you got the trays where everything is like beautifully organized.
And then the trucks that you fight, you get to put the resources in the back of them, which is really cool. So this is another one with a lot of miniatures on the board, and I thought about this one, but again, like I removed a lot of the like dudes on a map style games. Like this one is actually a pick up and deliver game, but there are a lot of miniatures out on the board. It's a big modular board. It's actually like a pick up and deliver with some combat.
Yeah.
Great freaking game. Absolutely adore this game. Didn't make my list though because, like I said, I wound up pulling a lot of the mini games off because there's still a couple on here, but I just kept like the couple that I thought were highest rated for me.
Okay.
So, is there anything else you wanted to say on Wasteland Express delivery service for your number? What was that, 7?
Yep.
My number 7 is Cloudspire. Cloudspire is a game where it's kind of like a battle strategy or MOBA in a board game kind of game where you have a bunch of these puzzly pieces of neoprene that you fit together to make the boards. You have a individual player board that plugs into one end of the board, and then you have pieces that are made out of poker chips with illustrations and their stats on them that you send out into the board to fight your opponent's pieces and eventually go in and destroy their fortress. The poker pieces look fantastic. The artwork on the neoprene looks fantastic. And when you buy the miniature expansion, so you have actually 3-dimensional towers that you put the poker chips on top of, this game is just unbelievably cool looking on the tabletop. I have the miniature expansion. That's a big part of why the game Cloudspire made it all the way down to my number 7 best table presence game. I think I got it out properly that time. Best table presence game. Number 6.
My number 6 is Pan Am. Because again, you have a big map, and you got all the planes.
Okay, you're just loving the classic looking maps. Oh, the plane routes are cool too.
Yeah, and you get the plastic planes, and once you get like the giant planes out, that take up like half of the.
Like there's the cruiser and the jet. Yeah, because it's a route building game basically.
The 4-point plane is like huge.
Yeah, it's the jet. The jet is a 4-point plane. Because it's like, I mean, it's a route building game.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. I like Pan Am a lot. This one, I didn't even think of this one because the menus are a little simple for me. But you're right, it does look really cool. And the whole map centered around the North Pole because of the way flight routes go a lot is really cool looking. It's a very interesting, cool, old school map. And it's got that very much nostalgia effect to it. Pan Am is a really good game too, on top of that. It's also just a really, really awesome game. So that was your number 6?
Yep.
Anything else you want to say on Pan Am?
No.
So my next one is a game that slowly builds itself up higher and higher and higher as it goes. It is Towers of Arkanos. So this is a game where you draft dice and meeples to place on these circles out on the board. And when you fill all the spots, you put another level on the tower, which is another circle. And they build up as they go. By the end of the game, it winds up looking incredibly crazy as you have all these towers on the board built up with meeples and dice supporting them. It's a lot of fun. The gameplay itself is also a lot of fun, but it's not here for the gameplay. It's here on my list of best table presence games because of how cool it looks when you have the towers going and they're getting pretty tall. And all of a sudden you look down and you're like, wait, what's supporting those? Oh, a combination of meeples and dice? Like, it's cool, it's weird looking, it's very attention getting. And that's why Towers of Arkanos made it down to my number 6 best table presence game. Anything you wanted to say on Towers of Arkanos?
No.
Okay. Number 5.
My number 5 is Raiders of Scythia.
Oh, that's a great game.
Because it's got the big board.
I'm seeing a pattern here. You got a lot of games with like big artistic boards. Big, beautiful looking boards.
But it doesn't have a map. It has the different sections.
A lot. Big boards and cannot lie. Oh, sorry.
So it has like the first section, which is like your base, and then it has the rating section.
Yeah, the different, because you can raid different areas of the world. Like I think the final area is Greece. Like that's, and they get progressively harder to raid the further down you get. Raiders of Synthy is a great game with, it's basically like a worker placement with some combat game.
Yeah.
And the artwork on the cards is really beautiful too. I totally get why this one made your list, especially since you seem to be 100% picking games that have big, beautiful looking artistic boards. But I'm really starting to wonder if there's going to be any crossover, because you and I seem to have been doing different things. Like most of my games seem to be big on the three-dimensional aspects, whereas yours are just big on the table presence of the artisticness.
Well, I ordered mine in how much I like them.
Oh.
Not how much of a table presence they
Oh,
have.
see, I went by table presence.
Okay.
So that might be a little different. All right, so that was your number 5, yes?
Yes.
So my number 5 favorite, the best table presence, I keep messing that up. My number 5 best table presence game is another big multi-level game. And this one is a big 3-dimensional, 3-level board with bright, colorful pieces, awesome chunky wooden player pieces, and patterns of bright colors all over the board. This is Holy. Holy is a super cool looking board. You have this 3-dimensionally built 3-level board that you slowly move up and fill the transparent spaces with color pieces and move your big chunky wooden animal pieces of, a crocodile and an elephant and a peacock around on the board and work their way up. And I think the fourth one is a tiger. Work your way up to the top. But as cool as this game is like a weird abstract pattern forming game, and it is a really cool game, it's even cooler for how beautiful it looks and how attention-getting it is on the tabletop. And that is why Holy is my number 5. Number 4.
My number 4 is Everdel. Has the big tree.
It's also got a beautiful board too.
It's got a big board too.
And
it's also got a big tree.
And the artwork on all the cards is gorgeous too. The cute little animals
and
all.
the little pieces, like the wood and the berries.
Yeah, well, we got the special version where we have like the rubber berries, so they're squishy and everything's beautiful in that. There's chunky wooden meeples, beautiful artwork, giant 3-dimensional tree. This might be a crossover considering how many 3-dimensional things I've been putting on my list. Wow. Okay. Anything else you want to say on Everdel? It's a big worker placement and village building game. Would you agree?
Tableau building.
Tableau building. Worker placement and tableau building. That makes a lot of sense. That was your number 4?
I think so.
Okay. So, I think so.
Yes.
Okay. My number 4 is one of the miniature games I kept on here, and it's because it is a miniature game with pre-painted minis, and this is actually the one that, in my opinion, has the best, hands down, the best most detailed pre-painted minis of any of the pre-painted mini games I've ever played. Is why I made it so high on my list, because it looks absolutely gorgeous on the tabletop, especially if you play it with a game map that makes it look like what you're playing on, which it should look like outer space. And this is Battlestar Galactica Starship Battles. The fighters in this look absolutely gorgeous. Super awesome looking minis. And also just a fantastic dog-fighting tabletop miniatures game. Battlestar Galactica Starship Battles is my number 4 best table presence game.
Okay.
Number 3.
My number 3 is Anno 1800. It's got a big board. And then it has some smaller boards too.
There's a lot of boards in that game. There's a lot of boards going on.
There are. And then each player has a board that you take the smaller boards and you put on.
It's true. It's true. Because that one's like, what would you call? That's like an engine building.
Yeah.
Drafting. Also like city building, because you're building your own little colony.
Yeah.
A lot going on in that game. That game is great fun. Really good Euro game. A lot going on. And also, yeah, you're right. Big, pretty pieces, pretty artwork, beautiful looking board. Definitely a big pattern going here with you on those. My number 3, unless you had anything else to say on Anno 1800, great game. My number 3 is another of the miniature games that made my list. Now, I do believe that the paint jobs on the minis of this game are not quite as good as the ones that were in Battlestar Galactica Starship Battles. However, This one feels more epic because the variety and size of the ships is significantly more. You have very small ships, you have very large ships, and you have enormous ships. And this is Star Wars Armada. So Star Wars Armada is a game where you're playing out the full capital ship fights from the Star Wars universe. Think the big battle at the end of Return of the Jedi, as well as the huge space battle in Rogue One. You're playing out huge capital ship fights. Lots of little fighters flying around too, but it's more about the capital ships. And because of that, in just regular gameplay, you can get all the way up to, Imperial Star Destroyers, which are really big. But there's also an expansion that has the Super Star Destroyer, which is absolutely gargantuan on the tabletop compared to a lot of the other ships. And it can make the game feel really epic. And again, like my last one on my list, especially if you're playing on a space mat, to make it really look like what it's supposed to look like. And I have a really nice space mat that I use for both games. So that's why Star Wars Armada is my number 3 game with the best table presence.
Most best game with the table presence.
Hey, I got it right this time. Number 2.
My number 2 is Potion Explosion, because it's got the little clacky thing.
I thought about including this.
Down.
I didn't actually. So, I love the component of you're talking about the ingredient dispenser.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't think of it.
Yeah, I love it. But as much as I love that component, I believe I had it on my list for the top 10 game components. I didn't think it was super impressive actually out on the table by itself. It's kind of small. But yeah, I get why you put it though. It is a very cool mechanic and all.
Yeah, and then you have the little vial things.
The potions.
They're just cardboard, but they look.
You put the marbles on them.
They look different than any other game component. So.
Okay, so you just like the 3-dimensional appearance of all that. Yeah. No, and I get it. And the marbles are beautiful too. They're all bright colors and all. No, Potion Explosion is a great game. So definitely. That was your number 2, right?
Yes.
My number 2 is a crossover. Not going to talk too much about it because we already talked about it a bunch. It is Everdel. Everdel is fantastic. It's a great game. A lot of fun. We talked a lot about it, and that giant 3-dimensional tree is awesome. The artwork on the cards is awesome. So Everdel is our first and so far only crossover. We've only got one more entry on either of our lists for a possible another crossover. I wonder if there will be one.
Well, you already mentioned my number 1.
So there is at least one more crossover. I'll tell you what. I will reveal to you that there is going to only be that one more. So there'll be 2 crossovers total on this list. Mine is not a crossover.
Well, I knew that because you already said my number 1.
Oh, yeah, but my number 1 could have been something you had already mentioned.
Oh.
So you didn't know that.
I guess.
Yeah, but it isn't. It is.
Okay.
And now it is time for number 1.
My number 1 is Zerts.
Okay.
Because, again, you mentioned it's the only game that anyone in the coffee shop has stopped to ask us what it is every time we play it.
Every time we played it, yeah. People would come by really interested. They would, wouldn't they? I remember there was one time you and I were playing, and there was this group of retired people were sitting a couple tables over, and one of the guys just kept looking at us. And then when they were done, before he left, he came over and was just like, "What is this? What are you guys playing? I gotta know." So we told him, but yeah, no, it was very attention-getting game, 100%. So that's your number 1. All right, fair enough. My number 1 is the game with the largest amount of 3-dimensional boards. You literally can be playing with this game 2 sets of 3-dimensional boards, one with 3 levels and one with 2 levels at once in one game. Do you know what it is?
No.
Secret Unknown Stuff Escape from Dulce Base. Now, this is a fun, dungeon crawler adventure game that's very tongue-in-cheek. It's very silly. You're playing a bunch of, weird experiments and cryptids that are kept in the secret government base, and aliens are invading, and you're trying to escape, and you can get allies with other, cryptids and stuff that are escaping to help you get out. The game is fun, but the reason it's on my list is the giant 3-dimensional boards. The giant 3-dimensional boards are so attention-getting. As you saw on my list, I picked a lot of stuff with big 3-dimensional boards, and this is hands down the largest of the 3-dimensional boards of any game I have, and the most of them, like I said, because you can be playing a single game. If you play the large version of the game, you can be playing a single game with 2 sets of 3-dimensional boards out at once, and you bounce back between them as you work your way up the levels from the underground base, because that's what you're doing. You're working your way out from an underground base as you're trying to escape. fighting monsters and aliens and Men in Black and all sorts of weird things. But yeah, and other genetic experiments and strange stuff. So yeah, Secret Unknown Stuff, Escape from Dulce Base is
your most favorite, best table presence game?
No, the game with the best table presence. Hey, I only messed it up once. Anyway, yeah, no, this was a fun list to do. I really enjoyed it. Did you have fun with this one?
Yeah.
So there you guys have it. Let us know what you thought of our choices in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this top 10 list, you'd like to see us do more like it, be sure to give it a like, share it on all forms of social media. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. That's Captain spelled with a K on YouTube. And until next time,
Game on.